right. Well, hello and welcome to Drunk Comics. I'm Kelly from Phoenix Sisters, and today we're going to welcome Brian Wenzloff from Reels and Heels. Welcome, Brian. Cheers.
Hey, cheers. I love that glass.
Thank you.
I need to get that glass, and I probably won't be able to find it. Maybe on eBay or something, right?
Right. Yeah, I think I got it from Walmart not too long ago, but
Oh, next time I hit the road at Walmart, I'll look for it.
yes. They've had some really good superhero glasses, and I've been, ever since I started this show, every time I go to Walmart, I'm checking their superhero glasses, okay, gotta stock up glass.
They're like, well, it's that Drunk Comics lady. We gotta make sure we have those glasses for her.
I also have a local comic store that has just a whole display case with all the superhero glasses you could ask for. So every time I go in there, I'm buying glasses, and they must be like, man.
Yeah. You remember when the fast food places had glasses, like McDonald's and stuff, like in Burger King? I think McDonald's had like the Batman Forever glasses, and then they had like the Shrek glasses. Yeah.
The guy from my last episode was drinking out of a Batman Forever glass, and I told him I'm going to steal it next time I come to his house. Or if I ever come to his house. I've never been to his house. But yes, those were the days.
Yeah, they need to do that again. They need to do cool stuff like that.
Yeah, us adults need stuff to drink our adult beverages out of. And, kids probably like them too.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell me a little about yourself and where you're from? Obviously, we've had your wife on.
Oh, yes. I watched that episode. That was a great episode.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I was born in 1980. California. Grew up in San Diego. Probably, I would say, no, not probably. It is the most beautiful city in the United States. Did all the way up into my junior high school year, and my parents moved to Vegas, and I lived there for 15 years, and that's where I met my wife.
Oh, wow. By the way, feel free to fight Brian in the comments if you think your city is more beautiful.
Yeah.
You get into comics and superheroes.
Let's see. Well, comics, probably when I was about 6 or 7. Just like everyone else that's in the comics, Superman, Batman, Spider-Man. And then growing up in the 90s, Batman animated series, X-Men, Spider-Man series. But I think the first like comic related thing was probably the 70s Spider-Man series. I saw it on rerun in the 80s.
Nice.
Yeah.
One with all the one where all the memes come from, the you.
Right? Oh yeah. There was that cartoon in the 80s, Spider-Man and the Amazing Friends, where Spider-Man was living with Firestar and Iceman. They were in college.
Which is amazing. I
remember there was an episode where Captain America shows up.
Nice. Which is a nice segue into what you're going to talk about.
That's right. So, what's the next question you got here? What should we do? I'm a podcast host.
Yes. Oh, yep. So Reels and Heels. Tell me a little about Reels and Heels, and I'm gonna link to it at the end.
All right. So Reels and Heels is me and my wife Nicole. We talk about comics, movies, TV, pro wrestling. All things nerdy.
Yes. It's very fun. I've been a guest a couple of times, and I highly recommend people tune in.
Oh yeah, you were. I think the first time you were a guest was for the Supernatural episode that we did.
Mm-hmm. That was very fun.
Yeah.
And now we can get into what you're here for, which.
Oh yes. Well, we're here for what I think is. Okay, everybody says there's movies that are like the trilogy. So people talk about Star Wars, The Godfather, the Toy Story trilogy. We are going to be talking about the Captain America trilogy.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Which I know a lot of people were like, well, they're going to make a Captain America movie. Just like Iron Man, he wasn't a top tier character. I mean, he had his popularity. I don't even think he was popular really in the 80s. I mean, he was created in the 40s during World War II, so he was very popular there. There's that famous cover where he's punching out Hitler.
You do. As I've said before, if you get a chance to punch Nazi or Hitler, take it.
That's right.
Always punch
But
Nazis.
you know, he wasn't a top selling comic, and so when they decided that they wanted to do an Avengers film, which we find out at the end of Iron Man that Nick Fury was putting the Avengers together, and you found out what other movies they were doing. They were going to do Thor, and nobody knew if Thor was going to work, because Thor, just like Captain America and Iron Man, weren't sellers. You know, they had popular runs. They just weren't popular in the sale department. And so Captain America, and the first film is The First Avenger, which is a period piece directed by Joe Johnston, who did The Rocketeer. So he's very familiar with this era. And he also did Jurassic Park 3, which a lot of people either like or don't like. But I do love this film. It really captured what Captain America, what Steve Rogers embodies. And everybody was kind of in an uproar about Chris Evans being cast. They're like, oh, they cast a Human Torch.
Right? Even I said that, and I ate my words. I would gladly say I was wrong.
Yeah, I mean, because he was known for, you know, comedies.
Yep.
So they're like, oh, the guy from Not Another Teen Movie, which was a parody of all those teen comedies, you know?
Yes. And he was
I remember that scene when he comes out and he's naked, but he's got whipped cream and the cherries are sticking. So they cast him as Captain America, which, you know, I mean, Chris Evans is a big guy, but not a big guy. I've actually seen Chris Evans in person, and he's about 6 foot, you know, so he fits the mold of Captain America, just not the bodybuilder type. So when they were doing the Steve Rogers scenes when he was all skinny, they had to I don't know, like blue screen him to make him look like he's smaller.
That was impressive.
It was very impressive. Like, it was his face and his head. They just made him look smaller. And so, of course, when he takes the super soldier serum, and when the door opens and you see his body, like, I mean, Marvel, come on, everybody, when they get hired from Marvel, they do some kind of routine.
Marvel's got the best personal trainers in the world.
Yeah. I mean,
the moment where Peggy Carter touches his chest, apparently that's just what Haley Atwell did in that moment, and they were like, yep, we're gonna leave that in.
yes. And that's funny because
I would have done that.
In the art book, because I collect all the Marvel Studio art books, the art of, you know, making of whatever insert movie. In that book for Captain America, they talk about how that was kind of an accident. Like, she was so impressed. I'm trying to keep it kid friendly here. I know we're drinking and stuff, but
oh, you haven't seen many episodes of this show. This is an R-rated show. It is not kid friendly. No.
Well, let's just say she was very aroused.
Yeah. I mean, her and pretty much everyone who was attracted to men watching that movie.
Yeah. Well, there was an interview with Stanley Tucci who even he was very impressed.
To put it lightly.
Yes. But, you know, he wasn't the first choice. There was what everyone wants to be Mr. Fantastic, John Krasinski. He was in the running, and he was even fitted in the suit. And also, I had his name from he was in Daredevil season 3 as Bullseye, but he was also in the CW show Heart of Dixie.
You said Wilson something, right?
Yeah, Wilson. Wilson Bethel.
Thank you.
Yeah, and they were all fitted for the suit, but there was just something that Chris Evans, that the casting director and the director said, that's who we want.
It's because he is Captain America. Anyone who follows his Twitter knows he's always speaking up for justice and doing what he feels is right, which is what Cap does. Even if you don't agree with his politics, like Chris Evans absolutely leads with his heart and fights for American values, I think.
Yeah. And what's cool is he's actually a fan of Captain America.
That's awesome.
Like he knew his history. Like I remember when this first film came out and he was hitting the rounds. I think Leno was still the host of the Tonight Show, so he was on Jay Leno and he was talking about how he grew up reading Captain America.
That's amazing.
And so like he had mentioned that he thought it would be cool to one day play Captain America, and then he actually ended up being Captain America.
That's so awesome. I did.
And and so he kept talking on all the talk shows about, because usually that's what actors do. They spew the same thing when they go from talk show to talk show. It's just so much easier for them to just say the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair, but that's pretty cool. Like, kind of similar to Peter Capaldi, who wrote a fan letter to a Doctor Who fan magazine and then grew up to play Doctor Who when it showed.
I think that's really cool when you're like an author or an actor or a singer and you always say, you want to be that person or be in that film or TV series and you end up doing it.
That's amazing because those are the people who take the best care of the characters usually.
Yeah. So let me ask you, what did you think of the first Avenger? I mean, I'll say this, with Hollywood and doing period pieces, it's either hit and miss.
Yeah.
And this being a comic book film, I thought it was a hit. I still think it's an underrated film. I don't think it gets enough love. I mean, because we'll get to the sequel, but this first film is very underrated. I think it's very rewatchable.
One of my favorites. Just hit all the right notes. I love it. It's one of the movies that it's one of my comfort movies. Everyone has those movies that they rewatch whenever they want something that, just whenever you want something that's going to cheer you up.
Yeah. I think one of the best scenes in the film is not even a Captain America scene per se. It's when he joins the army and they're at the boot camp and he jumps on the grenade thinking it's going to blow up.
As soon as you started saying one of the best scenes before he's Captain America, I knew that's what you were going to say. That's one of my favorites too.
Yeah. And like that goes to show what kind of actor Chris Evans is, because that was a very dramatic scene. Like how he, as a character, would give up his life for the brothers in arms around him.
Mm-hmm. And that's how he showed that he had the right stuff.
That's right. And so that was the scene that the Stanley Tucci character said, that's our trial person that we need, because they were doing it before and the trials weren't working. So it had to be a certain person, and Steve had the heart.
And then the love story with Peggy just worked because she was in love with him before he got all buff and hot.
Buff and hot. And as all you women say that love him from Endgame, you know, he's America. That's America's ass.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
But yeah, I mean, just the cast all around. I mean, Sebastian Stan as Bucky, even though he's not in the film as long as we would hope. And Tommy Lee Jones. Okay, he's a great actor, and I know he's a diva and stuff. I've heard so many horror stories about him.
I know, but I love him. He's so good. There's a reason he's getting cast, even though he's a diva behind the scenes.
Yeah, and I have to say that Hugo Weaving as Red Skull, like, there was probably a few other actors that could do it, but he was on a high from V from Vendetta and, of course, the Matrix films, and he was also the voice of Megatron in the Transformers films. So he had the voice and the presence and the makeup. Oh my God! Like it was pretty freaky looking. I mean, you can kind of see here on the steelbook the background, the Red Skull there, and you know this film came out what 2011, so exactly 10 years ago. And you know Hydra, which is kind of an offshoot of the Nazis, it's a very controversial, especially in the times that we're living. So like I think that was one of the things, you know, even in 2011 that they were kind of weary on doing.
But they did it well.
Yeah, they did it well. I think
wish they hadn't glossed over like the montage of Steve's adventures after he became Captain America. I wish they hadn't just done a montage of that. That could have been like a whole movie in itself.
Yeah, I mean, I loved how he wore the classic comic book outfit, and he was like, you know, we want you, and he did the whole song and dance number on stage with the ladies and stuff.
That was hilarious.
I love how he had the original shield too before the circle. Yes, yes. So, you know, we have this film, and it did, I think it did okay at the box office. It didn't make $1 billion or anything like that, but if I'm not mistaken, it made, you know, and let's see here. I will look this up while I'm here. Captain America: The First Avenger. Let's see what it brought in. See, on Rotten Tomatoes, it had 80%. Yeah, it was $370 million with a $140 million budget. So yeah, it made money back.
That's good. And fans and critics were like blown away.
Yeah, I mean,
they were all like, "Wow, we weren't expecting much."
Yeah, I mean, the critic rating it's on Rotten Tomatoes. It was 80%, so that's fresh. Yeah. Now, this film.
Oh God. Yes.
This film was the first film directed by the Russo brothers for the Marvel Studios. Russo brothers, who were not really known in the film, they were known on television. They did a lot of episodes of Community, I believe it was, and they might have done Parks and Rec.
Is that? Oh, that's right. I knew that. I knew that when I saw it.
Yeah, they were TV directors. So this was their first major film. And this was a departure from everything Marvel was doing.
Incredible.
This was a political thriller from the 1970s. This was also the film that introduced us to the Falcon, played by Anthony Mackie.
Played brilliantly by Anthony Mackie. We love Anthony Mackie.
That's right.
Your right foot's
on your left.
On your left.
I love that scene where he's jogging and he keeps saying on your left as he's passing.
So quotable.
Yeah. But this also shows, this is the first film after Avengers, so he's in a modern time. And he, not really PTSD, but trying to live in a time where he doesn't know.
He's a man out of time. Literally.
Yeah.
And I love that Falcon actually is counseling soldiers with PTSD and connects with Steve about how fish out of water Steve feels. And that's also a movie that shows Black Widow, like really digs into Black Widow's character for the first time.
Yeah, definitely. Black Widow in this, there's kind of a little hint of a romance between Steve and Natasha, which I think in the later Marvel films, it just kind of, they forgot about it. But
apparently
this also
they had a plan to have them wake up in bed, and the actors put their foot down and were like, no, we don't want to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way the film turned out is for best. We see the return of Sebastian Stan, but as the Winter Soldier.
Mm-hmm.
We find out that he's been alive this whole time. They go back to that scene from First Avenger where they're on the train and he falls. And then you see what happens. He is rescued by Hydra.
And it's quite horrible what happens to Bucky. Bucky is one of the saddest characters in the Marvel Universe.
Definitely he is a very sad. And Sebastian Stan, who I think at this time wasn't really, I mean, between this and the first Captain America, he wasn't really known here in the US. I think he was more known overseas. He's done a lot of like European TV shows and stuff. I think him as Bucky Barnes, he had something with his eyes. The way that he played the Winter Soldier, it's like you could see the pain. His memory, not wiped, but subdued, I guess is what you would say. Yeah. It was kind of locked away, but you could see, especially when they're on the freeway where Steve and him lock eyes, and then he knew it was Bucky.
So good.
What I really like here is Sam Jackson as Nick Fury.
No, you can't get them.
You see Nick Fury in a bigger role than you did in Iron Man 2, because you see S.H.I.E.L.D., which he is the director of. And how in the heck did Marvel pull this off by getting Robert Redford?
I know, he was so good. Like,
I know, it's like, and
you know they're making a higher caliber of movies when people like Robert Redford are like, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, and as soon as he walks on the screen, like he had this thing about him, like, yeah, he's a bad guy. You just saw, like, you knew that there was something off about him. But what I think threw everyone off, because with Marvel, they take the comics, but they don't do them exact.
Yep. Is
that in this film, you find out that Hydra has basically taken over S.H.I.E.L.D.
That was a game changer.
It was. So, just like the first film, there's a scene that really stands out. You want to take a guess what the scene is in this one?
Hail Hydra.
The elevator scene.
Oh, yeah. Anyone want to get out?
Yes. I think they all regretted that. They should have got out. The fighting, the choreographed fights in this film. I mean, Frank Grillo.
So good.
Yes, who, this is before he's Crossbones. But that, I mean, in even the opening scene when they're in the airplane and Cap drops out without a parachute.
I know.
And it's like the guy's like, he didn't have a chute. And what was the villain? What's he called? The Leaper, which is played by George St. Pierre, who's a former UFC fighter. Which we actually see him in the newest episodes of Falcon and Winter Soldier. It was nice to see him back. But this film here, basically, like I said, is Cap. He has a list of things that he's missed out on. So on that list, he has like Star Wars, the Beatles, Saturday Night Fever was on there.
That list is different depending on which country the movie is airing in. So they CGI'd in a different list, like if the country's airing in China or European airings.
It would be, yeah, like, so the Chinese market, it would be like something that's super huge in China, that he would have missed. Yeah. I think that was really cool.
I agree. It was really interesting.
Kevin Feige, I mean, come on. We've talked about Kevin Feige on my show. Like, the dude has a plan. He's brilliant, yes. So we see that he is trying to fit into, this film came out, 2014? He's trying to fit in our time. He's not okay with politics.
Yep.
And you kind of got that in the Avengers where, and of course it leads into the next film, that his idea of America and what the government's idea of America is not the same.
Which is very, very Captain America and very topical.
Yeah. And there was a lot of stuff in here that was very relevant to what was going on in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everything in all the Marvel films, there's always something in there. And what I like about the Marvel films is if they have an agenda, whether it's political or LGBTQ or, representation of anything, they're not throwing it in your face and they're not banging on your head with it. It's there and it doesn't feel forced, at least in my opinion.
Right. They basically are letting you make your own decisions and it's just kind of naturally woven into the narrative, which I love.
Yeah.
But they for something, and that's what heroes should do.
Yeah. And this film, I mean, I walked out of this film. I wanted to go back and see it again.
It was one of my favorites.
I mean, I was disappointed in how SHIELD was no more, because I really thought SHIELD was really cool and I wanted to see more SHIELD. But I guess if you look at it now, if that didn't happen, we wouldn't have SWORD.
Right? And SHIELD's kind of been rebuilt bit by bit.
Yeah. And I mean, they tried to connect the series to this film. I mean, they took the series talked about the whole like Hydra taking over and all that, but I mean, it was kind of loosely based. I think the effects, the helicarriers, I was like, they have more than one,
Crazy.
and I mean, the mall scene, you know, when they're being chased and they're on the run, Natasha and Steve. Um, the fighting. I think one of the other scenes that steals it in this is when Cap throws the shield and Bucky catches it.
Right? That was crazy awesome.
Yeah. And again, Steve showing his heart um and even Bucky when Bucky's, you know, pulls him out of the water at the end.
You know, till the end of the line.
Yeah, I mean, what is it about this film that makes it? I mean, I'm gonna say that this is probably your favorite out of the three.
Oh yeah, hands down. I think this film digs so deep into the characters, like so much deeper than the other two, even though, and it, like you said, it's a political thriller, which is just different from everything the Marvel universe has to offer, which I love that. I love when superhero movies kind of take a risk, and it really does. What about you?
This out of the three, this is my favorite film. And I know I'm probably going to get shit from this from a few people that I know that will watch this when this airs. This is the greatest comic book film of all time.
I'm not going to argue.
I mean, some people say The Dark Knight, some people say Logan. I have issues when it comes to like The Dark Knight. Like that whole trilogy, to me, they're great Christopher Nolan films, but they're not very good Batman films.
Thank you. Yes.
High five.
High five. That is what I always say. Christopher Nolan has a disdain for superhero films. He has made that clear. He has made it clear, and you can tell in the movies. Like they are great Christopher Nolan films. They're not great Batman films. No.
Exactly. But this film right here, it doesn't matter if it's, 10 years old or if it's 20 years old, it will still hold up.
I agree.
And I mean, I had to get this version of the Blu-ray. This is actually a Walmart exclusive. This is the 3D Blu-ray. And it has this really cool
Walmart is not sponsoring this episode, by the way.
No. I'm an exclusive guy, so like whoever has the coolest exclusive. I mean,
yeah. The second time we mentioned Walmart.
No. I mean, there's another store that they think they're the best, and they have Steelbook exclusives, but they didn't have this cover.
It's a great cover.
Yeah. Because this was the standard cover, which I didn't like.
Yeah, I like the other one better. I will say I was disappointed with one choice they made because I was a huge fan of the history with Natasha and Bucky in the comics, and I'm disappointed that the Marvel universe or the Marvel Cinematic Universe didn't go down that road.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people were like, well, it's called The Winter Soldier, and they thought it was going to go one way, but they don't understand. If you're making something from a book or a comic book or whatever, if you make it exactly the same, then
can be boring.
What's the point?
I agree. I just they had a moment where she was like, "You could at least remember me," and then they like hinted a few other times. I'm like, okay. But they didn't go that route. They went the Bruce and Natasha route.
Yeah.
I feel like her and Bucky had a lot more to relate on, but
I think there's plans for I think they have plans for Bucky, and we're about to find out.
And I'm excited for it because he is one of my favorite characters in the comics and the MCU. So I'm excited.
Yeah. So
all right, so let's get on to the third one, which I will admit.
Well, I wanted to say though, real quick,
okay.
we're introduced to Sharon Carter.
Mm-hmm. And Sharon Carter was done a disservice by the MCU. I'm gonna say that, but nothing against the actress. The actress is awesome.
Oh yeah, I've been a fan of Emily Van Camp since Everwood.
The MCU just like decided that because I'm sorry, you say what you're gonna say first. I was gonna go on a rant.
well, no, I was gonna say I'm not giving up on Sharon Carter because I know what's coming. But yeah, I mean, based on the comics, I mean, what they did with her, it was a little bit neutered. I mean, they left a lot of stuff out, but this was also, I think this was one of the first films that Disney did, because they were still Paramount for the first film. And then, of course, the Marvel buyout happened in 2009. But there was still a contract with Paramount. So Paramount was still releasing the films, but they were being, it was like a dual release. It was like Paramount and Disney working together. And of course, Disney bought the whole rights back from Paramount so they can release the films themselves.
Yeah, basically my issue is, so Chris and Haley did have a lot of chemistry and Steve was great, but one of the things that made their relationship great was that it ended, and it was poignant the way it ended, you know? But fans loved it so much that Marvel thought that the happy ending for them was for him to go back in time and then they get together. And then they didn't really give Sharon and Steve a chance. They didn't give Sharon a chance to be her badass self. But like you said, she's gonna get a chance.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited.
Yeah, so excited. So when this film ends, it ends with S.H.I.E.L.D. Pretty much done. And so the Avengers are, I mean, their own thing, which is ran by Tony Stark. Tony Stark is funding them. They're not even part of the government. Yeah. Civil War.
My least favorite in the trilogy. Sorry.
I have this almost on par with The Winter Soldier. If this film is the greatest comic book movie of all time, this is the most comic book movie of all time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This, I mean, the whole airport scene.
That was good. That was good. I'll give you that.
Yeah. So we got the Russo brothers back again. And so the whole thing of this movie is they're in, well, what was the country they were in? They were in some foreign country, chasing down Crossbones and some other Hydra agents. Mm-hmm. And of course, this was the fallout of Age of Ultron. So we have, you know, Scarlet Witch is now part of, and Vision is part of the Avengers. And so on their mission, Scarlet Witch kind of makes a boo-boo.
Yeah, for one.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, and then there's the the Sokovia.
So it was Sokovia that it happened in.
Yeah, Sokovia has they have the Accords. So all super beings, super powered heroes, whatever, they have to register.
Okay.
And just like where Captain America feels like what he thinks of America and what the government thinks of America are two different things. So you got Tony, who used to make weapons and no longer makes weapons and has a different perspective on things. He signs the Accords and he is with the government, where Steve, on the other hand, has a different opinion. And it kind of puts them at odds. So before there is any real huge conflict between them, they find out that Bucky is out there somewhere.
Yep.
And yeah, so they go to track him down, and Bucky is set up with there was like all the governments were doing like a UN meeting or whatever, and the Black Panther's father was killed, and it was made to look like Bucky did it. And of course, this is where we're introduced to Chadwick Boseman's, rest in peace, Black Panther.
Amazing.
Yeah, and because they side with Bucky, Tony basically has to go and bring them back. And Cap is not handing Bucky over.
Of course not.
As we say, till the end of the line. Now, this film, I mentioned the airport scene. It is the most comic book scene out of any comic book movie, Marvel or DC, that you'll ever see. And this film was the first film they used a specific camera for that scene, and it was filmed on a certain type of IMAX camera.
Interesting.
So it was made specifically for IMAX, which we know is like a 70-foot screen.
Right.
Yeah.
Very
so
smart.
Yeah, it when I believe I have this is the version, I believe this is the IMAX version. When the airport scene happens on this Blu-ray, it actually fills up the whole screen. So you don't have the black bars.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, there's some people that are Team Stark, a lot of people that are Team Captain America. I know we're talking about Captain America here, but if you're looking down the middle, do you see both sides, or do you see one side over the other?
I see both sides, which means the movie did its job.
Yeah. So what is it about Stark's side that you either agree with or disagree with?
So superheroes should have accountability like superpowered people. I see that.
Yeah. And then on Cap,
the answer to no one, what happens if a superpowered person just goes out and starts killing people in the name of justice?
Right. And then so on Cap's side, you understand how he feels that they shouldn't be pawns.
Exactly. And that they also deserve their privacy, and they shouldn't be beholden to any government. And yeah, I was totally Team Cap. I'm going to say that, but I see Stark's side.
I thought that Zemo's plan, which
Your Team Zemo.
yeah, Team Zemo. No, Daniel Bruhl as Zemo, fantastic. And I'm glad he's back in Falcon and Winter Soldier. His plan was executed perfectly. I mean, he tore the Avengers apart. That's what he wanted to do. And it was all, he wasn't evil, really. I mean, he was just upset that his family was killed. And this is why
Wanda and Pietro, same thing. They just land on a different side.
Right. So you have, Black Panther be introduced in here. What did you think when you first saw Black Panther played by Chadwick Boseman?
Chills. So good. Like, wow.
Yeah. Did you ever think that we would see the character of Black Panther ever in the MCU before this movie came out?
No. Not until they started with the rumors. And then when they started with the rumors, I was like, yeah, we'll see. I'll believe it when we actually get a movie. Like,
yeah. So at this point, we have characters like Vision, Scarlet Witch, Hawkeye, Black Widow, War Machine, Iron Man. These weren't the big sellers, but by the time that after the 2 Captain America films came out, and of course the Iron Man film, these were top tier characters again.
Awesome.
What is it about these 3 films that that makes these level characters go beyond what they originally were?
I think it's just
is it like the writing? Is it the actors? Is it the direction? I mean, is it a little bit of everything?
I think it's everything. I think you have to have that special sauce of just being able to bring it to life. And the Russo brothers, they're so gifted.
Yes, I feel bad for the Russos because everything they've done outside the MCU has not worked.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't really followed their movies outside of the MCU. Like, obviously I've watched Community and Parks and Rec, but that's sad. Because they're so good.
They did a film with Chadwick Boseman a few years ago called, I believe it was called like 21 Bridges or something like that. It was like a cop film from like the 20s or 30s or whatever like that. And then their newest film is on Apple TV with Tom Holland called Cherry, which I haven't watched yet, but I mean, I've heard it was pretty decent, so I'll check it out, and I hope that they can turn it around. But what they've done with, the Winter Soldier and Civil War, and then, of course, the 2 Avenger films, Infinity War and Endgame, I think as directors for those films, they've been the most successful in the MCU.
Oh, for sure.
And, I mean, those 4 films, I think were heavily, the second part of Infinity War and then Endgame were very Steve Rogers centered films.
Yeah. You can tell they love and respect the character of Steve Rogers, and he is very much the heart of the Marvel the Avengers corner of the Marvel universe. I think he's the heart of it.
Yeah. So Civil War, did you like the way that they done it compared to the comic? Because, in the comic, if they did it that way, Cap would have been murdered at the end.
No. So like I said, this is his favorite of the 3 Cap films, and I preferred the comic, but obviously didn't have the mutants, and so there was a lot. I was really, really bitter about Civil War because I wanted a proper Cap 3 that focused on Captain America and his supporting characters. So, like Sam And Bucky kind of got, and Sharon got the short end of the stick because it became Avengers 2.5. So I was a little bitter about that.
Yeah. And now we also got introduced to the MCU version of Spider-Man in this film.
Yeah. And I have issues with that too. I feel like Spider-Man getting dragged into this conflict by Tony Stark in a crappy way was like, okay, so I love Spider-Man in the MCU. And that airport scene, he really shined in that. But the way he got there was terrible. Tony was a jackass. Like, you gotta come into this conflict, or I'm gonna mess up your life and expose you. And basically, if Tony had gotten his way and Spider-Man would have had to sign the Sokovia Accords, he would have been unmasked.
Yeah. And then, like,
I know in the comics,
the original comic, right? If I remember correctly, yeah, he unmasked and on like live TV, and then what is it? Cap is assassinated, right on the steps in Washington D.C.
I don't think that had to do. I think that was separate from Civil War.
I thought that was one of the parts of, because Civil War, it was multiple comics, right?
Right. Okay, I'll have to go back and reread.
Yeah, because like Miss Marvel was part of it,
but Spider-Man was a consenting adult when he was Team Stark in the comics. He wasn't a teenager who was scared into it.
Right. I like the whole scene where it reminded me of, like, when you have the gangs, right? They come up and then Stark is like, he's like, Underoos, and everybody's like, what? And he comes swinging in, and he has Cap's shield. He goes, hey. I love the back and forth between Steve and Peter when he's like, hey, how are you? He's like, I'm a big fan, even though they're fighting.
That's cute.
He's like, where are you from? He's like, Queens.
But the mom in me is like, no, you don't bring a teenager across the ocean by threatening him, scaring him, and he doesn't know what he's consenting to. Like, that's not okay.
Yeah, but it was funny because in his first MCU film, Spider-Man: Homecoming, you have that whole like scene where he's all excited. He's got the camera and he's like, "Yeah, I was like, Underoos," and he's all telling the story. I thought that was funny.
It is cute, but Tony Stark is a terrible mentor to Peter. I'm sorry, I'm gonna die on that hill.
Well, I mean, we all know that Tony has an ego, and the best casting ever was Robert Downey Jr. because if you ever were a fan of Iron Man and you read the comics, Robert Downey Jr. was the real life Tony Stark.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect casting, and he made him so likable even with the flaws. So it made it easier to forgive the.
Yeah, and then of course, after this film, we get, Infinity War, where, Tony has, he's still the ego maniac that he is, and Steve and Bucky are living in Wakanda, and they're on the run, and what is it? Hawkeye has an ankle bracelet, and so does
home on the farm.
Yeah, Ant-Man. Ant-Man has, he's stuck at his house in San Francisco.
Because he colored outside the lines with Captain America.
Yes, he colored outside the lines. Oh my gosh. But yeah, these three films, they're definitely a top trilogy for me. I mean, like I said,
sure.
When people say trilogies, like I said, Star Wars, Toy Story, Godfather, I say the Captain America trilogy.
Yeah, agreed.
I do think we're going to get a fourth film, though. I have a feeling we're going to get a fourth Captain America film.
But without Chris Evans? Or do you think?
No, I think Chris Evans is coming back. Even though, I mean, they've kind of said that he's coming back, and they're they're kind of backtracking on it because I think it came out like prematurely.
Yeah. We'll see. I would like that. I would like that. I would. I don't know. I don't like the ending for him. I know a lot of people liked him going back in time and getting his happy ending with Peggy, and I love Steve and Peggy, but it was poignant because it ended.
Yeah, well, I think they're going to need him, especially if they're leading to Secret Invasion with the Skrulls.
Yeah, I agree.
And then who knows with Kang the Conqueror in the third Ant-Man film. I mean, there's going to be a lot of stuff. You know, Kang is someone that when you mess with time travel, he doesn't like it.
Very true. Very true. We will see. I would watch. I mean, I would watch Chris Evans in anything.
Yes.
My husband's laughing at me.
Can we talk about Falcon and Winter Soldier a little bit because it's kind of connected to these films.
Yes, please.
Okay, so we're in the second episode, and you know, of course, this is the fallout of Endgame. Spoiler alert: Cap gave up his shield to Sam. Yeah. In the comics, Bucky got it, but in the movie, it was given to Sam. Sam doesn't feel like, not that he's good enough, but he doesn't feel like that it belongs to him.
Yeah. Bless Sam.
Yeah. Nicole, we watched the second episode last night, and there's a scene between Sam and Bucky. I'm not gonna say anything because, you know, spoilers, but you might know. Yeah, it was very emotional, especially what Bucky says.
That scene, broke my heart. Also, they bring in, do we want to spoil the character they bring in?
Well,
they bring in another character who is
they bring in another character that is part of the super soldier program that wasn't widely known.
Mm-hmm. That's a good deep dive, and there's a little glimpse of his grandson who was a young Avenger.
That's right. So that means there's only 2 more Young Avengers that they haven't introduced yet.
Yes, that's exciting. I'm so ready for
Falcon and Winter Soldier captures everything that these 3 films capture. Like, I'm getting Winter Soldier vibes.
Me too.
So the best way to describe the series, if you haven't watched it, is political thriller mixed with buddy cop. So think of any political thriller movie from the 70s mixed with, I said this to my friend, 48 Hours.
Okay, yep. It's good. It's very good. It's basically Captain America 4.
Yeah, just spread out through 6 episodes.
Yeah. I mean, you could sit through 6 episodes. What? Sit through 6 episodes. It's worth it.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it's funny because I was reading the story to Nicole about Anthony Mackie, and he was talking about growing up in New Orleans and being, you know, in poverty, and how he's so grateful for what he's got in Hollywood, and how his mom had passed away from cancer, and that he is, even though it was a sad situation for him, if that didn't happen, he wouldn't have been in the situation that he is in now. And so there's this thing where in all the movies, he would always joke about, you know, when he comes to set, he's like, you know, number 6, you know, because each actor has like on the page, like, you know, where their billing is. So he's like 6 billings here on the set. So Kevin Feige did the joke, even though he's first billing on the show, on the paper, the script, it says 6 billing, just so Anthony Mackie doesn't have an ego. And it's kind of like the fun back and forth that they have. but Anthony Mackie is so proud of this show.
As he should be. It's really good. And I feel like it's tackling a lot of things about race relations.
Yeah, and there's a scene, and it's not really a spoiler because it's nothing really big, but after they visit a character, they're out in the street, him and Bucky are arguing, and the cops come and they give him a hard time. He's like, "Sir, is this man bothering you?" And Bucky's like, "No." And then the other cop's like, "Do you know who this is?" He's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Falcon. I didn't recognize you without your goggles." It's like
heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It was so well done.
Back to the mercy.
Like you said, it's not overly preachy, but it also gets the point across that they're trying to make. So well done.
I mean, they're trying to do the MCU in the real world. So you have real world problems they're not always superhero and supervillain.
Which is important. Like even the X-Men is an allegory, as we discussed in Nicole's episode. Go back and watch it. Nicole's amazing. But the X-Men is an allegory for the civil rights movement.
Right.
It has always been rooted in the real world. It's always been a view into all of the prejudices of the real world. Good fiction.
It's nice as not just in a comic book show or a film, but it's nice to see that a black male is a lead.
Yes. And
such a big thing. And I think that's important in Hollywood because I'm a film fan. I love cinema. I'd like to see more representation.
Representation matters.
It does. It does matter. And Anthony Mackie is a fantastic actor. And he doesn't always have to be, you know, the best friend or like he can be the male lead.
He definitely has a star power.
Sense about that show. I just think that show is brilliant.
It's so good. It's so good. I highly recommend watching it. So what else do you want to say about Captain America?
Well, I think I said this already. And yeah, it's America's ass.
It's America's ass. Cheers to that. That is a good note to end on. Thank you for being on the show.
Oh, this is fun. I would love to have you back on my show. I mean, we could do shows like all day long, I think.
I think so too. Yeah, I definitely am coming back on your show. We just have to find the right topic and a day that works for both of us. And you're welcome to come back here, obviously.
Yeah, I'll have to find something. I'm gonna find something obscure to talk about next time.
Yes. I can do obscure. Obscure is fun.
Okay.
All right. Well, cheers again.
Cheers.